And then there's Lesley Stahl. She is doing an interview with Keith Siegel. Keith Siegel was kept by Hamas. I'm sorry, did I say kept? Keith Siegel was a hostage, tortured and terrorized by a terrorist organization called Hamas, supported by Iran and on college campuses all across America. What I'm going to share with you is a short clip. I think it's 18 seconds. This is what Lesley Stahl asked of Mr. Siegel in a conversation about how he was treated.
The terrorists became very mean and very cruel and violent.
More so.
Much more so. They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you or they just didn't have food?
No, I think they starved me, and they would often eat in front of me and not offer me food.
I am very rarely left without words. This is one of those times. It is impossible to believe that someone could have said this. It's impossible to believe that someone could have asked this.
The terrorists became very mean and very cruel and violent.
More so.
Much more so. They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you or they just didn't have food?
No, I think they starved me, and they would often eat in front of me and not offer me food.
You say these people starved you, but don't you know it was Israel that was starving the people of Gaza? And that's why they couldn't get you any food while they held you as a hostage. The rational person would say, well, if they couldn't feed you, maybe you shouldn't have been a hostage. Maybe they should have let you go. But since the only reason to hold a hostage is to get an advantage, and we already know that the hostages were tortured, why would anybody make this claim? This claim that clearly ties into and is supportive of the Gaza Health Ministry claim of, look at how these people are starving. The people of Gaza were never starving. And if they were, it's because Hamas kept the food from the people of Gaza. As we know, they stole all the trucks that had aid that was coming in from the United Nations, because Hamas doesn't give a damn about the people of Gaza. There was a guy who was protesting Hamas. Enough with this war, enough with this. You're getting us all killed and it has to stop. They kidnapped the guy, they tortured the guy, they killed the guy, and they dropped his dead body on his mother's doorstep. That's Hamas. That's who they are. It's a terrorist organization. Queers for Palestine, every gay person or trans person who supports Palestine, if they spent an hour in Gaza, they'd be killed. If they spent an hour in Israel, they'd probably get some good falafel. That's the difference. There is a difference. Israel's better. Their culture's better. Their people's better. Their philosophy is better. Hamas is a terrorist organization that will kill anybody they disagree with. Did they starve you, or did they just not have food because those terrible Israelis didn't give them food? Very rarely speechless. But that one was just a stunner. There have been some people who think that maybe Lesley Stahl did everybody a favor. That the favor was when he says, no. They had food. They just didn't give it to me, and they ate right in front of me to torture me. The idea that, well, Hamas told everybody these people are starving, and now everybody knows through this interview that that was just a lie, and they made it all up, and Lesley Stahl did us all a favor. In no way am I going to bring myself to give any level of kudo to Lesley Stahl, because inadvertent a lesson is not the same as proactively trying to educate a populace. Her argument was those poor people in Gaza, that's why you didn't have any food. The evil in that statement, the useful idiot nature of that statement, I'm not quite sure what else someone is supposed to say. What is a rational person supposed to do with that argument? My argument, she should be fired. CBS News is not a news organization. And when people like the White House Correspondents Association or others question trusting journalists, why would we trust this? When the White House says we're going to change the seating chart in the briefing room, and we're no longer going to leave it up to the White House Correspondents Association, we're going to decide. We're going to decide. Well, certainly you can argue that there's going to be a president elected who you don't agree with, of a party you didn't vote for, and you don't want them to have control, and choosing the journalist, that can be seen as rough stuff. But we should admit that CBS doesn't have journalists. CBS has the most grotesque propagandists who may have ever lived, which is saying something because CNN is right there. And MSNBC is, well, there. Do they exist in 6 months? Maybe, but they're up for sale. And why would anybody want to keep any of that talent? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't provide anything. There's just no proper word. And maybe it's that words that I can't use on radio to describe the evil in the question. Here's the guy who was tortured, and nobody questions it. Nobody questions that he was taken hostage by Hamas on October 7th. No one questions that he was tortured. And here's Lesley Stahl, doe-eyed, to ask, well, what about the poor Gazans? What about these poor Hamas terrorists? They didn't have any food. Was it fair to them? You would think they wouldn't want anybody else to suffer. They'd let the hostage go. Once the rational mind does what the rational mind does, and understanding what it is she said, you find yourself without a word that can make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. You can argue it as pure evil, or you can argue it as pure ignorance. But if anybody questions, and anybody ever asked, hey, what's the definition of useful idiot? It's Lesley Stahl, who should be fired. She should be fired for this. Oh, Tony, you believe in cancel culture. There are things that are egregious. This is not journalism. This was a propaganda moment meant to help and support a terrorist organization. Yeah, I think you should be fired for that. I think CBS should consider holding a standard or something. You're not wrong to hate these people. And it stinks that you actually have to hate them. I get it. It stinks. Who wants this? But they refuse to recognize how terrible they are. They refuse to recognize that they are awful. And it's up to us to recognize it, to share it, and not support it. Any story you see from CBS News, don't believe it. Check, double check, and recheck. And that's true of everybody. But it's clear that CBS is not interested in journalists. The journalists who ask the tough questions, like Tony Dokapol, they get pulled. The journalists who push propaganda, like Lesley Stahl, they get to stay on 60 Minutes. They've told you who they are. Believe them. I'm Tony Katz.